Katana Zero definitely checks all the boxes of what I like to see in a game. It's hyper-focused on exactly what it wants to be by delivering quick gameplay, excellent art, perfect music, and a rather interesting story. And the nice thing about all of it is the fact that it's all sold at a pretty cheap price, at $15. But it's unfortunately a game that I haven't heard a whole lot of people talk about. But that's why I wanted to put together this video to let you know why you should care about it. So stick around and join the conversation as we talk about why you should care about Katana Zero. If you're not familiar, I usually like to structure these videos by first letting you know what is good about this game. Because ultimately, even if there's something to care about here, if the game itself doesn't hit its target and isn't good on its own, then what are we even talking about? I think my favorite aspect of this game overall, and we'll break this down a little bit more thoroughly, is just the fact that all of the elements of this game work towards the same thematic and goal, being in the art, music, story, and gameplay. So let's go ahead and break down each one of those topics and start with combat, which is also, of course, linked to gameplay. If you've played Hotline Miami by any chance, then you'll probably love this game too. They're both produced by Devolver Digital, and honestly, I haven't really had a whole lot of their games that I don't enjoy. But back to the topic, the reason that I draw the comparison to Hotline Miami is the combat is similar in the way that it's a very fast-paced, one hit equals one kill sort of combat game. So that rule goes for enemies and it also goes for you. The only things that don't follow that format of just having one hit kill them is some select bosses in this game. Now, a lot of enemies in this game are actually going to have guns, and you have a katana. Seems like a disadvantage until you start playing the game. You actually have access to slowing down time, and in that, you can dodge past bullets or even deflect them back at enemies. You can also pick up different one-time use thrown objects, and of course, you have your katana. I just love how this feels super fluid when you're going through this, and the game really wants you to feel cool while you're going through each of these combat encounters. A fun little touch they put on this too is your main character has these time manipulating abilities, and so what he's actually doing when you're playing the game, he's predicting all of the different ways that the next scenario can play out and mapping it out in his head. And then when you finally put the pieces together and actually defeat all the enemies and move forward to the next stage of that level, that's essentially your main character going, oh, that's it, that's how I'll do it. And then he goes and does it. And you get a replay of exactly what you just did looks like in real time. And you can skip this if it's something that you don't like, which is cool. It's just another little tidbit of flavor that gets to add on to this already great game that's so stylized and hyper-focused. And it kind of goes along with the story, and I really enjoyed that a lot. I also like too, this game does, of course, punish you for taking the wrong steps, but it doesn't feel super frustrating. It doesn't really break your momentum, so you just kind of learn and you just tackle it again. And this is another thing that I feel like a lot of studios don't really emphasize. Having a quick flow and good rhythm to your gameplay will totally make or break your game. And I love that they put so much emphasis on making this game flow together so well. Even in the slower moments, it feels earned and it feels deserved. But whenever you're actually playing the combat encounters of this game, it's always really quick and you have to think on your feet really fast, and I just enjoy that a lot in games. This is definitely my favorite part of this game, but really all the different elements of what make this game up are super high quality. So let's go ahead and talk about the second one, which is going to be story and art. Usually I don't like to group these both together because they are very distinct, but this game blends them both together itself and lends to each other's strengths, being the story and the art. So again, the setting is a dystopian neo-noir sort of metropolis, and the designs of the levels and the characters and everything is so vibrant, and it just pulls all of it together to make each character unique. One of the things that I love about this is the fact that the dialogue itself, when you're talking to NPCs, is colored and animated, so it lets you like effectively, quote unquote, hear the characters even though there's no voice acting in this game. It's a really effective use of tone, and honestly it allows you to relate to the characters again without having to actually hear their voice. I just thought it was a cool little thing that they put into this game to just give it more character. Speaking of dialogue, one of the things I like too is the fact that you always have an option in almost every single dialogue tree, essentially, whenever someone's talking, that you can interrupt them and move them forward in the story. So if you don't really care and you just want them to move along, you can just press a button and just immediately shut them up. As far as I'm aware, a lot of the different dialogue options really don't impact the story that much. There's like an optional boss that will only appear depending on certain dialogue options you choose, and there are some things that do affect, I believe, the endings of this game. But overall, I just enjoyed that if you're really only here for the gameplay, you can just skip past all the dialogue stuff if you don't enjoy it. This game gives you lots of freedom to be able to play it the way that you want to and just get to exactly what you want. But let's go ahead and actually give an overview of the story itself. I'm really just going to go and hit the very basics of the story and avoid all spoilers here. Really the only things I'm quote unquote spoiling, I guess, would be in your first hour to 2 hours of gameplay, and really it's just setup of what the story gives you pretty much right from the get-go. And it's something that I believe you can gather just from the trailers itself. You play as a hitman, or assassin if you will, with amnesia after a traumatic injury they sustained in a recent war. So after offing each target or completing each assignment, you meet with a therapist. And that therapist will help talk through these chronic nightmares you've been having and anything else that you might be experiencing, well, mentally. And then he also provides you a dose of medicine that is supposed to be helping you with this. You gather really early on that there's something off with the company and the therapist. Again, I'm not going to go into spoilers here, but that's what the meat of the story is going to be, is you digging into that and figuring that out. If you like trippy, time manipulating stories, then I'm really confident that you'll enjoy something here too. Just know that the story doesn't fully wrap up in the end, and the creator is planning some free DLC to expand on this. This game did come out in April of 2019, so it has been a bit, but this DLC has been delayed several times because the more that the creator works on this, the larger the scope gets on what he wants to make. He actually did say on Twitter that this is now 6 times the size of what he originally anticipated. But again, really cool that we're getting free DLC, so you can't really complain about the timing on it. And honestly, it's not too unexpected to me. He said that he was anticipating to have this DLC be at least half the size of the game, which the game itself took 6 years to put together. So now that we're getting up to 3 years here, about half the development cycle. It's really not that unfair and not that long of a timeline if you think about it that way. Another thing that the creator said too is that he's planning to continue this story in Katana Zero in some other facet. So that could be another game, that could just be the DLC, it could be even a tangential game following somebody else that's in this story, or really something else entirely that we're not really anticipating here. I'm expecting it to be separate from the DLC. Not that the DLC won't expand on the story, but I think that this is going to be something else entirely because he didn't really specifically say that's what the goal of the DLC was. But getting back to the visuals, I wanted to put a lot of gameplay in the background so you could just see how much this game just is vibrant. It constantly draws you in. Again, I love that they put the visuals together with the story so well to just make everything as effective as possible and really draw your attention to what you're supposed to be looking at. It's effective storytelling and it's purposeful storytelling. There's often a lot of games that I've played where I could not care about the dialogue at all. And honestly, it feels like the game doesn't really want you to either. When it just gives you these block of text for you to just read on your own time, or like every single NPC just doesn't really have any character, then yeah, I mean, like, it doesn't deserve to have your attention on that. And what I love about this game is the dialogue isn't super heavy in the first place, so you're not being stuck on that one. Mainly what drew you into this game is the combat. But when it does have you there, it delivers a good experience by giving you something to look at that's visually appealing, and again, delivering on that tone like we discussed before in the dialogue options. So this is a really effective approach that I hope to see in other games. But I wanted to dive into one more element here, and that's the music. This one will be kind of brief because I'm not really that well versed in music in general, but I like music and I really like the soundtrack. It's synthwave focused and it gets you really hyped up for whatever you're doing in those levels. Again, just matches up exactly to the visuals and the gameplay, exactly what you should be getting with this. I don't know, it's the type of music that you picture when you see the art or you see the gameplay, at least in my opinion. It matches the futuristic yet also 80s inspired setting of the game. And honestly, like, the soundtrack is super good on its own as well. It's again great background music for when you're studying or working or maybe even working out or anything like that. If you expected anything super in-depth with the music here, you're really watching the wrong person. Yeah, again, I'm not super well versed on exactly what goes into high quality music, but again, I can tell you that it's good. I like it. But now to pull all of these elements in together to really give you a focal point on exactly what this video is about, honestly, I think it's always good to see small studios make these incredible products. Katana Zero was put together by a very small team. It was mainly put together by one guy. And honestly, it's much easier to support games that have love, care, and effort put into them. Not to mention knowing that the team cares about the game. This is a similar point to what I make in the Hades video I put on the channel. But honestly, it's clear to see the difference in a project that was cared for and made by talented and passionate individuals versus an addiction that was concocted in a boardroom by investors and executives of a AAA studio that will inevitably crunch their employees and force them to produce the game, most likely before it's even a finished product. Obviously, there is a difference in budget typically, and it can become evident in some of these indie titles. But games like Katana Zero definitely deserve their praise for their hyper-focus on executing on a theme, taking the time necessary to craft what their vision was, and even selling the game at a reasonable price. This incredibly focused and excellent game deserves so much more attention and hype around it, as it sets a great example of what we should expect regarding quality for the games that were sold. And honestly, that, among many other reasons, is why I think you should care about Katana Zero. But that wraps this one up. Let me know in the comments down below if you've played this game yet, and if you have, what'd you think about it? If you haven't, are you gonna pick it up? While you're down there, go ahead and leave a like. It really helps the algorithm with pushing this video to other people that might want to see it. While you're there, go ahead and consider subscribing. It really helps me a lot. And I just wanted to thank you all for watching this video all the way to the end. It means a lot that you listen to my rambling and just talking about something that I enjoy. So thank you all so much for everybody that supports me and just helps me make these videos possible. It's a fun hobby, and I'm really aiming to try to get at least one video out a week, so expect more content. And honestly, if you have any constructive criticism on my videos, please put it in the comments. I want to make better content for you guys. It doesn't hurt my feelings at all if you think that what I'm doing could be better. I mean, obviously it can. One last thing, if you want to watch me play any games live, go ahead and follow me on Twitch. I'll put a link in the description. And maybe even recommend something that you'd like to see me play. Whether it's a game I already talked about, or maybe something you'd like to recommend to me. I'm open to anything. But that's going to do it here, so thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next one.